I think my relationship with my body is a work in progress. I know what it was like being an ugly kid in school and being unhappy with my body and being unhappy with my skin, my hair, everything, and navigating the world as that person. When I joined Cosmo, in my interview, I was asked, what are three things that you loved about the last issue? And I was 23 at the time. And my response was, I've never read a Cosmo in my life. And the editor was very amused and she said, so then why do you want to write for Cosmo? I said, I just want to write. I'm Saumyaa Vohra and my pronouns are she/her. I think also what's been interesting to me is, I definitely do and have written about fashion, but I also write about lifestyle and food and alcohol and travel. And I feel like trends are something that just kind of exist across everything, right? There's alcohol trends and there's travel trends or whatever. But I think what's fascinating is that people tend to believe that trends dictate, like someone will say, oh, neon sneakers are in fashion. But neon sneakers are in fashion primarily because people start wearing neon sneakers. So it actually works the other way around. And the quickest and most surefire way to get a trend started is when more and more people start to subscribe to something. It's the same thing as like an Instagram reel, for example, right? It'll become a real trend because a bunch of people will just find value in it and then do it. So I find that it's interesting because it's cyclical. Like everybody thinks that there's this mandate being laid down and then people have to subscribe to it. But I truly believe that trends itself are a reflection of popular culture. It's a reflection of what people think is cool, is part of the zeitgeist at that time. So I think that to me what's interesting is that, and like people very often say, I don't follow trends. I don't think anyone really follows trends in a real way. I think trends are there as a reflection to show you what's happening and what's current. And I do believe that at the end of the day, trends can help inform you, but you will always have a style and a voice that you may or may not even know you have. It may be something that you consciously cultivated. You may say that, as a cis-het woman, I wear a lot of pretty flowery dresses and that's what I wear. Or as like a bi woman, somebody may observe that, hey, I've actually never seen you in a pair of heels. And then you realize, oh yeah, I'm always in sneakers. So your voice exists whether you're aware of it or not. And to me, that's what's really fascinating about fashion and travel. It's like the things that you do that sort of drive you and make you who you are, they always exist. And they're always a very organic part of who you are, just like they are an organic part of who I am. But it's not necessarily something that's curated and cultivated to be, this is the version of myself I'll put out there. So to me, that's always been fascinating. The little things that are markers or identifiers of people that they may or may not even be aware of. When I joined Cosmo, in my interview, I was asked, what are three things that you loved about the last issue? And I was 23 at the time. And my response was, I've never read a Cosmo in my life. And the editor was very amused and she said, so then why do you want to write for Cosmo? I said, I just want to write. Don't necessarily want to write for Cosmo. And to me, it was always very interesting to be part of a magazine that also was very diametrically different to everything that I'd grown up with. Because, I had just come, I was fresh off of a master's in film. So I had come from this very politically and socially engaged space that was having conversations, having fights with the government, painting graffiti on the walls, to this corporate thing where everyone was in heels and mixing lipsticks, and it was such a dichotomy of worlds that it was a culture shock for sure. And I had walked in on my first day thinking that I looked fairly nice because I was wearing a nice crisp sort of white Fab India shirt and I was wearing a pair of blue jeans. and I walk in and everybody's in like these crisply pressed culottes and, you know, heels, and hair is swept back, and, you know, so it was definitely a culture shock, not just in terms of the way people looked, but the things they cared about, the things they talked about, the worlds that they navigated, and the people that they knew. And for me, it all felt very alien. And I think I spent the first several months feeling very out of place until I started sort of going out and realizing that what was interesting about me was that I was not part of this. And that's what people found interesting about me as well, because I think on some level, everybody also sort of grows a little weary of you know, having the same conversations, knowing the same people. And I think I was very fascinating to them because I wasn't an idiot, and at the same time I wasn't part of their world. So to talk to somebody and engage with somebody who was not part of their world but still had something to say, I think was interesting for people. And it took me a little while to be able to embrace that and to say that I'll always be, you know, the girl in the room who was wearing H&M and Sarojini in the early days, you know. But that was what I'd always had to offer, and it tied into my perception of myself as well, because I didn't grow up thinking of myself as this very beautiful, well-polished. I wasn't. I remember through the 13th year of my life, I was bullied in school because I'd gone to this really like posh rich kid school, and I was the girl with glasses and acne and a terrible boy cut, and, you know, and everyone around me had started waxing at the age of 13, and to me it was so alien and strange. I was like, why are these women waxed? Why do they have highlights in their hair, you know? So I had always seen myself as the funny girl or the girl who, you know, was capable of having a great conversation, of being funny or amusing or entertaining or whatever. But I never saw myself as beautiful or polished or anything. So it wasn't disconcerting to me. And the minute I realized that it's okay to be that version of myself in this world as well, that is full of that beauty and polish and glamour, I think it made life a lot easier. Because I think what tends to happen for a lot of people who enter the space is that they really do feel the need to be able to be part of it. And I realized that I can have one foot in and one foot out. I definitely dress better now. Yeah. I think my previous editors will vouch for that. I dress better now. I know that I know the ins and outs of social events, of all of these things. But I still care about all of the same things. I still watch a lot of weird art house cinema. You know, I still read a lot of books that none of the people that I know think are interesting, and that's okay. And I think that it's nice that both parts of me have managed to stay alive, because you either end up choosing one or the other, but I think they've kind of flourished in tandem, and for that I'm grateful.
I agree with that.
So I think that it's inevitable to be a product of our circumstances, right? I think it definitely made a big difference that in my early years, I was with somebody who didn't make me feel great about my body. It made a difference that in my early years, I was in a school full of women who just, you know, I mean, looked great. They didn't look like, I mean, I look back at those pictures now and we all look like kids, but back then, you know, they were the pretty girls. And it was just this idea of, you know, because the beauty or the being of the pretty girl was always reciprocated with popularity or attention or, you know, sort of favor, whether it was from like teachers or just peers or whatever it was. And you kind of very early get that messaging that if you're beautiful, life is easier. If you're thin, life is easier. And let's not lie to ourselves. It is absolutely easier. And the reason that I can say that is because, I mean, well, I'm not exactly like Giselle Bundchen or Gal Gadot right now, but I am a marked improvement on the way I used to look in school. And I know what it was like being an ugly kid in school and being unhappy with my body and being unhappy with my skin, my hair, everything, and navigating the world as that person and navigating the world as the person that I am now. And the strange thing is that what's changed is how I look externally, and what's changed is how I'm perceived externally. But what hasn't changed, and I wish I had a more woke answer. I wish I had an answer where, you know, I said that I am so delighted and confident in the person that I am today. But I don't think that's true. I think I'm a little bit better, but I think I definitely have a lot of work to do. But yes, of course, there are so many times that I look in the mirror and I still see that girl, and I don't look and see a beautiful body. I see a body that needs work. And it's amazing because I've been with my partner, who I'm married to, we've been together 10 years now. And touch wood, I've been blessed to have somebody who makes me feel good about myself regularly, because I do think that's important in a partner. Whoever you're with should make you feel good about yourself. And it still hasn't been enough. It hasn't been, even external validation hasn't been enough to erase those scars of childhood. And that's why I think it's really, early messaging is really, really important. And addressing that early messaging is really, really important, because it comes from everywhere. Like, if you'll allow me to digress quickly,
Yes.
I'll give you a small example. I remember the other day I was with a couple of friends. We were just like randomly watching these ridiculous like early 2000s videos of, you know, Atomic Kitten, and I mean, we grew up at that time, you know, and it was, yeah, so Atomic Kitten and like, who are those guys who sang C'est La Vie, Bewitched, you know, and all this like pop music of back then. And I noticed that all the women were ridiculously thin. Like, they were paper thin. It wasn't even like shapely, you know, worked out. They were just really, really, really thin. Like, all of them looked like they had healthy, glowing faces, but they looked like they hadn't eaten in years. And I remember, this is what we were exposed to. This is what we were constantly internalizing all the time, right? You were looking at these girls and they were dancing around, they were beautiful and they were aspirational at that time. And in your head, whether you had the tools to process it or not and say, this is why I want to be thin, you were just like, this is what I want to look like because it's well received.
Yeah.
And I think it's, to me at least, it's interesting now that also, and another important thing to point out is they were all white, obviously. And I think that's why it's definitely interesting. I think that teenagers right now are part of a much more interesting world because they genuinely see so much more in terms of what they're growing up with. You know, you're watching, at least, you still definitely have that, you know, ideal, but at least you're watching, you know, like women with big bodies being comfortable and happy with those bodies on screen. And it's so important because you need to see it in mainstream media. And if you don't see it on your TV screens, if you don't see it in the movies that everyone is watching, if you don't walk into stores and comfortably find your size, that little tokenism that everyone does is not going to be worth it. It's not going to help. It needs to be extremely normal. Like, it needs to be a situation where you don't have one token plus size model walking in a fashion show. You have 15 models, out of which 6 have big bodies, 6 have very normal bodies, 5 have cellulite on their thighs. You need to see it everywhere for it to actually have an impact. That one token person, I guess, is a start, but it's not going to really fix anything. So I think, just to come back to what you said, I think my relationship with my body is a work in progress. And I think anyone who doesn't believe that is either deluded or lying, because there isn't going to be this one point where we are 100% completely happy with who we are, physically, mentally, professionally, at all, right? It's just that there are going to be things that happen in life that make you very, very grateful for who you are and what you have. And I think those are the moments where you'll pull back and say, Like for me, it was the pandemic. The fact that I got through COVID twice intact made me look at my body from a different perspective, because I'd always thought of it as aesthetic. I was like, why don't I look the way I want to? And I was like, thank God this body bloody got me through the pandemic twice. And I'm alive. Fingers crossed, I haven't gotten any tests done after. But I think that it's moments like that that just make you kind of pull back and have some perspective that's different. So yeah, I think it's a work in progress, but I definitely have more understanding and more appreciation for it now than I did, say, even 10 years ago. So I think that an important premise to start with is to remember that people do not necessarily use social media as a tool to share sorrow. They use it as a tool to share joy, right? So they will share progress, they will share accomplishments, they will share a good hair day. But it's very rare that somebody will put up the loss of a loved one, And even when they do, it's something that is scrutinized. It's people saying, this is such a private thing to share. And I feel like social media is actually just, you're right. I mean, I don't think there are right or wrong answers. I don't think you can be reprimanded for using filters or whatever. You shouldn't be. If you're reprimanding somebody for using filters, reprimand people for using makeup. Yeah, makeup is the original filter of life, But I think that becomes really strange, because the only problem I really have with social media is that it seems like there is no right way to navigate it. Because no matter what you end up doing, if you're somebody who only puts up beautiful, curated, happy moments, everybody's like, she's extremely fake on social media. Or if you put up moments of sadness, there was a blogger recently, I remember, there was a Reddit thread about some blogger who'd put up something about breaking up with a boyfriend. And everyone was like, why does she need to cry about it on social media? And I feel like it's just a new edition of people will talk, And people will always talk. They will always have something horrible to say about you. Most of the time, they will have something horrible to say about you. But I think that social media works when you decide what you want from it. And then you just go for it unabashedly. Like, if what you want on social media is you want 1 million people to follow you and you're going to make that happen, cool. Go for it, make 1 million people follow you. Or if your goal for social media is that you're going to have 200 followers and keep your account private and only share things with close friends and family, do that. I think the important thing to understand is it's not one size fits all. And in a situation with social media, I think that as long as you're okay with it and you feel like just the only thing that I would say is remember that everything lives forever. So if you're putting something out there, whatever it is, however deeply personal it is, just remember, just ask yourself if you'll be okay with this surfacing 5 years later. And I believe that applies more than anything to people and the things they tweet. Because if it's something that you won't feel as strongly about 5 years down the line, maybe don't put it up. Because I think that it's a great place to have fun, but also the minute that you become someone of quote unquote public value or social value, it's also the kind of thing that can be used against you. So I don't know, I just feel like social media is a very, very tricky place to navigate. I've gotten a lot of criticism about my social media. I've also gotten a lot of love and praise, and it's both ways. And to say that it doesn't matter is also a lie. It's a very film actor kind of line to say, I don't read about myself in the papers. It's bullshit. If people are trolling you, you'll be upset about it. And if people are being nice to you, it will definitely be something that, makes you feel good about yourself. That's what social media is. It's an instant hit or not. So as long as you acknowledge all of these things in a very real way, I like that Instagram shows you that somebody has used a filter, so that you're not sitting there and going, my God, these women are beautiful, because that's exactly what ties into the way we grew up. So if it's a world where everyone's using filters, that's as good as no one's using filters, It doesn't matter. It's just something fun that you're doing that's an add-on. It's not something that filters don't bother me, Photoshop does. Because when you put up something and you say hashtag no filter and you're emerging from the sea or whatever, and you can tell that, like, because we are in the business, we know that somebody's image has been doctored, but the average person just thinks that people look that perfect. I think that's what becomes problematic. I think filters are great because you're owning it. You know exactly what it is. You will see right at the top that someone has used XYZ filter, and I think that's fine. So I think that that two similar but slightly diverse answers for what I would do in my work and what I would do personally. In my work is the shorter answer, so I'll give that first. I think it's just important to show that anyone can really look good in whatever they want to. I think the idea of kind of just... so this is actually possibly the most controversial thing I say all the time, and it gets me in a lot of trouble, but I'm going to say it anyway, which is I don't necessarily believe in... I've never believed that everybody should subscribe to a certain trend, or just like simply no one must wear leopard print, But my theory is most people don't look great in leopard print, So just figure out if it works for you, and you will have an inherent feeling about whether something... And I think what I disagree with fashion is pain, and I'll come to that in my answer about the way I dress myself. I think the way that I do it in magazines is that I will just make sure that you're not saying that you can't wear this because it's from the women's section, you can't wear this because it's from the kids section. You can wear whatever you want as long as it works for you. And to me, it's just about curating and talking about and having conversations about what is interesting and cool and new. Like I recently, spoke to this wonderful designer who creates art on a canvas and then translates that art, through hand embroidered, karigari and all of that to fabric. And to me, he was fascinating. And that's it. It was just about the fact that will everyone wear his clothes? Can everyone afford his clothes? No. There's a version of his clothes that more people can afford. But the point is, it was just, to me, that's what fashion is. It's just about, I guess pushing boundaries is one term, but it's just about subverting the narrative. It's about doing something that is genuinely interesting and new, that doesn't pander to anything. It's about having some degree of original thought in a world where everything has kind of already been said. And to me, anyone who can do that through their clothes or through what they make is exciting. That's it. That's really all it boils down to. Like if and it may or may not even be something that ties into my personal style. Like today's outfit notwithstanding, I'm generally somebody who's usually in blacks and nudes and whites. And but I love watching, maximalist designers and do their thing, because I think done well, maximalist design is the hardest thing in the world to do, because it's so easy to go wrong. There's 1,000 different ways you can go wrong. It's harder to go wrong with minimalism. So yeah, I think that's from a professional point of view. And from a personal point of view, I think that I just kind of decided very, very early on that if I'm not comfortable in it, it's not worth it. And it didn't happen immediately. It happened after two years of wearing heels to events that were happening on lawns where my heels kept sinking in. And then I suddenly realized that, you know what? I'm comfortable being the person who takes off her heels and walks around barefoot on that lawn at a fashion event. And to the fashion world, that was an anomaly. It still is. And I think over time, I realized that I don't like heels. So I will not wear heels ever unless it's something that really, 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 really needs it. And I find most of the time it doesn't. So in any situation, I'm in sneakers or I'm in extremely comfortable flats, because a simple rule that I have is I should never feel the need to take my shoes off and be in pain. Similarly, I will not wear something that I feel doesn't fit me well or makes me uncomfortable. If I'm tugging at hemlines or if I'm tugging at necklines, it may look great, but if I'm not comfortable in it, I think people being uncomfortable in something shows very quickly and it's very unappealing. And so I would rather, like, I think people who wear like giant oversized t-shirts with a pair of sneakers end up looking a lot more cool and comfortable than a lot of women that you will see walking around in very, very tight bodycon dresses, who are feeling a little bit cold, who are feeling a little bit like they can't sit properly, you know, because they don't feel comfortable. And it does bother me because it all comes from this idea that you need to look sexy, you need to look this, you need to look that. But actually you just need to look good for yourself, and you will look the best for yourself if you're actually comfortable in what you're wearing. Like right now, I'm extremely comfortable. If I wanted to, I could cross my legs and sit and give you this interview and be fine. And I think that figuring that out early helped a lot. And I just wish that a lot of other people would remember that and realize that at the end of the day, if you're not comfortable in what you're wearing, it's going to show. So no matter how pretty your dress is or how big the designer is, it doesn't matter. The first thing, and possibly one of my favorite things about the lockdown, and not the pandemic, the lockdown, was not having to wear a bra. I love it. I think that's who I am when I'm not around people. It's the first thing I do. It's the thing I value the most of all. It's something I actually end up doing even if I have people over and they've been around for a long enough time. I'm like, you know what? I think we're at that stage in the evening. And I just feel like for me, I've never understood, like, I remember when the lockdown had first started, there were people who were saying, you know, I dress up for myself and I sit to, like, you know, work from home and I wear like a pair of pants and I wear a crisp white shirt. I was like, why? You can work in your boxers, you know? So for me, I think it's something I just genuinely really enjoy. Like, I enjoy being in, you know, I wear glasses. So I will never wear lenses unless I really need to. My hair is never down unless I need it to be. It's usually in like this big juda, and that's how I used to work as well when I was in an office. I used to wear a bra, of course. But I think that to me, it really is, it ends up being a face I put on, right? Like I put it on, I liaise with people, I meet people socially, and then I come home and while I don't technically wear like a face full of makeup or whatever, but I'll take the lenses off, I'll put my hair up, I'll put my glasses on, and then I will get into my pajamas, and then that is returned to equilibrium. And whenever I can afford to, in terms of not having to work or whatever, I leave my phone in a part of my house that is a little inaccessible to get to. So I have a duplex house and I leave it on the top floor because I know I'll be lazy about climbing the stairs. And so subconsciously I get 4 or 5 hours off from my phone because it's literally out of sight, out of mind. And it's not like I'm replacing it with, you know, and then I sit and I read Dostoevsky. I don't. I do read, but it's not Dostoevsky. Never again. But I will read, or I will watch TV, I will Netflix, I will do whatever. But it will just be about not engaging with anybody else. And I think that I need that because I spend so much of my life engaging with other people. So it's also why I hate talking on the phone. Like, I genuinely hate the idea of the phone call, and I was so grateful when texting emerged as a concept. Like, I would much rather leave a voice note because I feel like a phone call is a very immediate intrusion into your time, and I just don't like it. I've never liked it. So I think that for me, the return to my body is about A, immediately making it comfortable, and B, immediately sort of feeding it, actually, literally. Like, one of the first things I do and I value this so much, is if in between events or whatever, or in between like work and a meeting or whatever it is, if I can come home for even an hour and have a cup of tea, I'm so grateful. Like, I just really enjoy the act of taking even that 30 minutes, having some tea and then leaving, or 30 minutes eating a snack and leaving. And I think that's part of where, you know, this deep link of body dysmorphia comes in, is because I'm always thinking in some way about food all the time. Like I'm always like, I wouldn't say I'm always hungry, but because I enjoy cooking, because I write about food, because it's always been a very inherent part of my life, to me it's like there are very often times where I will think of a holiday in terms of how many meals I have left, you know. So I think to me it's freeing it, like for my body, the disengagement from the world is freeing it from, you know, the clothes I would wear outside or things like that, and B, feeding it, because those are the two things that really relax me. Like just to be able to get in that space where I can sit down and eat something and be in very, very comfortable clothes and know that I'm done with having to liaise with other people. Yeah, that's about
I
it.
don't think that would stop answer at all.
Oh, okay, sorry. I thought that was like a lot of, because I've gotten that a lot from certain, not the same thing, but you know, like I just like to go home and chill in my pajamas, and I'm like,
Yeah. But you also need a personal, like sharing the fact about like how when you're traveling also you're thinking about how many meals there are left.
yeah, because I really enjoy the aspect of being able to eat at interesting places. And when I say interesting places, it's never like a fancy restaurant or a hotel. I've never found those the mainstay of what excites me. But especially when I'm traveling, it's like finding those local dive bars or finding like, you know, a cart on the side who's known for really good like poi and sausage or whatever. And so yeah, I think that to me is very exciting. Like the more of these little places that I can try in a holiday is a lot of fun. Then I feel like I've accomplished something.
Like what you saw? Support us so we can create more empowering content for you. Like and share this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel.